Hello and welcome. If you haven't been on a driving holiday in India, there are many reasons to do it. One of them is Bob Rupani, who's sitting here with me and is going to tell me why he wrote the first book on the subject and has now followed it up with another book which promises to be far more insightful and in-depth on what are the things that you could do and in that process. Bob, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
So what prompted you to write the first book? Let me take a little bit of history and then we'll come to the present.
Okay. Look, I've always enjoyed driving. I was doing a lot of motorsport in the 90s. And you know, motorsport generally rallies happen in areas which are very pretty, not very populated, dirt roads. And there were such pretty places, but I was racing by them, you know. And I promised myself that I'll come back someday and do this at leisure and really see, you know, our country in a better manner. So that's got me, after I gave up active motorsport, I then started driving on my own and going with friends and family to different parts of India, all the rural parts, interior parts, less explored parts. And what happened is gradually word spread that Bob's been doing this, and then friends would call, family would call and say, where did you go? We want to do the same thing. And this happened so often that a very good friend suggested, well, why don't you pen a book? It will help people like us, you know. So I said, all right, why not? So then from 2003 to 2005, I drove some 60,000 kilometers in 2 years, dedicated to doing this book. Shot about 7,000 odd photographs, and then did a book called Driving Holidays in India, which was, you know, published towards the latter half of 2005. I, of course, never anticipated the kind of response it would get. I was a little skeptical who would want to go out driving and explore India.
It's also the time the Golden Quadrilateral was kind of coming.
Yes, things had just begun to happen.
Yeah.
And as luck would have it, the book went on to become a bestseller. And it started a whole trend of driving holiday books. Lots of other people have been doing them.
Right. So what's going to be different in the update or the follow-up version that you're doing now?
See, what happened is that since the book sold so well, we did 2 reprints, and we were again out of print in 2010, and the distributor said, I need, you know, new copies. I was just not comfortable because, like you said, Golden Quadrilateral had happened. So much had changed. We had done a huge amount of expansion of roads, tourism, infrastructure, lots of things had changed. And I said, just doing, you know, as someone who's very passionate about it, you want to share the good stuff. Like I yet remember the first book of mine, More Driving Holidays in India. I got a call after a year after it was published, and there was this doctor from Jabalpur who spoke to me, and he said, you know, as a wedding gift, I was given your book. And he said it was the best honeymoon I had because I took my motorcycle and my wife and we went with your book. And he said, anytime you're in Jabalpur, you're a guest of ours. And I subsequently met up with him. So I realized, you know, how this book had impacted lives in various places. So I said, the next one I'm doing has got to be just as good, if not better. So again, from 2010, as and when I could take off, I went and I visited every kilometer that's, you know, mapped in the book, or every place I have actually been there. Every hotel that's listed, I've stayed there. You know, so there is an authenticity to it.
Right. So tell me about what's changed in India in the last, I mean, you know, we always tend to look at post-liberalization and maybe post-2000, right? So why should people be going out and discovering this country, apart from all the literary and cultural reasons that?
See, I'll tell you, India actually, like so many people have said, the real India is in the villages. The real India is rural India. Access to it earlier was very difficult, mainly because of, you know, the road infrastructure, accommodation, very limited. That has changed now. We have much better roads. Accommodation has improved. Definitely along the main highways now, every second, you know, town has a decent hotel that you can sleep the night in. But even in the interior places, there is a sense now. Of course, you know, homestays are becoming more popular. Like for example, you go into Sikkim where the infrastructure is very poor, but every village there is at least one person who is being assigned by the government to, you know, as an official homestay. So these are reasons that have now allowed you greater access. But while things have become good, there is also the bad, you know. For example, I believe there's this whole culture of divided highways in India. We've expanded our highways very good. We've divided them, but which is, I don't think really works for India, because people don't want to drive that much ahead to make a U-turn to come back to their village or shop. So they drive on the wrong side of the road. Driving's become more dangerous. More cars, more motorcycles. I mean, people are driving badly.
Yeah. And we have almost, I think, what, 14 people dying every day, a million deaths in the last decade?
Absolutely. We are annually losing about 150,000 people to, you know, road fatalities. And that's higher than China. India's beaten China in this.
Yeah, proportionately,
and
yes.
And we are doing nothing about it. So that's the one part I feel that, yes, we need to go out and explore the country, but you got to drive very, very carefully.
Right. So I'll come to the driving tips and the actual driving tips in a moment, Bob. But again, I'm sure a lot of people ask you this. Your 2 or 3, maybe 3 best places or surprises that you would recommend for people who are stepping out?
I'd definitely say the lesser known forests in central India. For example, you know, the Satpura region, which is yet very pristine and not overrun by tourism. That's unfortunately, tourism has happened big time and we don't manage it very well. So a lot of our places, whether they are wildlife reserves or the more you know, architectural places, heritage places, we don't look after them particularly well. Right. So that's a tragedy. But I'd
what's the closest city, town which one should head for?
In Satpuras,
yeah,
you could go from Bhopal and make base in the Satpura Tiger Reserve or Pachmadi, explore that area. That I think is yet very pristine, very
so
nice.
That's one. Second?
Second, for a driving person, someone who really wants to drive long.
Like you.
Yeah, I would say do Ladakh for sure. And you know, wherever a border roads organization are, they build really great roads. I mean, a distance from Bhuj to Jaisalmer would be close to 850 or 900 kilometers. And you can drive that in 10 hours.
No kidding.
And you have the, on one side you have the Run of Kutch, which then merges with the Thar Desert.
Right.
Very little habitation because it's the border region.
Right. And there's no restrictions. And so
there is no restrictions. The army convoy is always moving up and down there. Very beautiful, very nice.
And that's news to me. I mean, not that I would know. I mean, I have a great knowledge of that place, but Bhuj Jaisalmer 850 kilometer stretch.
In 10 hours, easy.
In 10 hours, yeah,
easy.
That's world class.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's your second pick. Third?
Yes, that would be.
So I guess that would also include a trip to the Run of Kutch, therefore.
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
And then go on to Rajasthan and
then definitely.
Yeah.
The Run of Kutch for sure. You have a region known as Little Run of Kutch. Actually, very interesting that you mentioned this. It's one of my favorite drives. The Run of Kutch actually gets inundated by the sea in the monsoons, and then it dries up and you can drive. But many centuries back, it was actually this part of the seabed, and there is an island in there called Maidak, which from, you know, Viramgam, where you would make base, or Dasada, where you would make base, is by road about 160, 70 kilometers. And it's arrow straight, there are no roads in there, you're driving on the desert, this thing. You can actually drive there today. And I believe in the 14th century, a ship had you know, shipwrecked there, and people had got marooned on that island.
Wow,
and then they were rescued. And today you can actually drive there.
Right.
So it's an incredible
the
experience.
The important thing is to have that sense of history about the area or the place that you're driving through, right? So it enriches the whole experience.
It does, it does. For example, Ladakh. You know, I just love Ladakh. And for me, it became very significant that I'd gone into the Nubra Valley to, you know, where the Silk Route actually went into Tibet and then into China and all that. And I had the opportunity 2 months back to actually drive on the Silk Route in Central Asia. So there was this big connect to me saying, oh, I've seen the Indian part, you know, and now I'm driving the Central Asian part. And then you see the same bacterian two-humped camel that you find in the Nubra Valley in Ladakh. I saw them all over in, you know, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. So you can
see the links kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's geographically, it's all one
Even
region.
culturally, I mean, you went there and the food was like you get something called somsa in Uzbekistan. It's exactly like our samosa.
Yeah.
The only thing is they don't fry it. They bake it, you know.
Right.
And they have naan. We have naan. It's very, the gardens, they were called Bagh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of similarities.
Right. So, and let me, last question, 2 things that, 2 or 3 tips when you get out on the road in India that you should be always back of your mind.
They're very simple. One, don't drive after dark, avoid driving after. Start early. You know, the earlier you start, you tend to miss all the traffic in the big cities. And then through the day, that pattern continues. You know, I generally would start early, like 4 or 5 in the morning. I make sure I'm carrying a packed lunch with me.
Okay.
So you're not wasting time stopping and, you know, letting the traffic, and you reach your destination by, you know, midday, afternoon, 2:33, you're in your destination, you then enjoy the drive so much more. You enjoy the destination. And of course, you have to be a little street smart in India. You don't trust every signboard you see. You have to ask locals. And you generally...
GPS, Google Maps?
GPS yet doesn't. It works on the national highways reasonably well. But off the national highways, interior India, it's not particularly good. So I generally stop at always, any little town has a bus stand or a taxi stand. And these are the guys that are driving people up and down. So a little conversation with them updates you on what are the conditions of the road, which is the better way to go, and things like that. Rather than just asking a shopkeeper, I try to hone in on the local transport guys, the bus guy or the taxi guy who gives me updated knowledge as of yesterday.
Right, and that sounds like a great tip, and we may have to end, unfortunately, Bob. This is a very tempting conversation. I'd love to continue. Thanks so much for speaking with us, and wish you all the best for your updated
Thank you.
new
Thank
edition.
you. I'd love to tell the viewers, please go out there, buy more driving holidays in India.